Welcome to Coffee with MBA and Beyond. I'm Paridhi, co-founder of MBA and Beyond, with two amazing speakers from INSEAD with me tonight. Just going to introduce them in a bit. Before we start, I want to wish all of you a very happy International Women's Day with a very stellar stat from MBA and Beyond. So this year, our success rate with women candidates has been more than 92%. And we are very proud and happy to be working with women candidates. And for anybody looking forward to, as a woman, applying to NCR this year for round 2, not round 1, because we can't really pull off a very good application in the next 3 days for NCR. If you're looking, we are happy to help you and figure out if your profile suits our top 10, who we are offering some really big and massive fellowships to work with MBA and beyond. Today we've got Shantanu and Praveg with us. Shantanu is the founder of MBA and Beyond, also an INSEAD alum. Praveg works with Bain and an INSEAD alum as well. And I believe they're going to really fill you up with all the insights that you're looking for the deadline in the next 3 days, or even if you're going for round 2. As Shantanu and Praveg introduce themselves in detail, I would love to see your answers in chats if you're applying for round 1 or round 2, so we can navigate the conversation accordingly in the next few minutes. Over to you, Shantanu, and then Praveg, you can go after that.
Right. Thank you, Paridhi. Happy Women's Day to all the lovely ladies over here. In general, the women's success rate over the last few years has been wonderful. Right. So in general, I wish all of you luck. A little intro about myself. Guys, I'm an NCR 2017 December batch graduate. Apart from work, you know what I do. Apart from work, I mix music. I've played at a few sundowner bars and clubs at Goa. I play poker. I've also play with professionals. I'm not a professional poker player though. I play chess. Chess is something that I just do every day. Just sharpens my mind, and I love to tell stories. So one thing that correlates with what I do professionally is I love to listen. I love to understand who you are and give it a spin. I would love to tell, two beautiful stories coming from strong women, but after Praveg has given his introduction. Praveg, over to you. Cheers.
Amazing. Thanks, Shantanu. Thanks, Paridhi. So firstly, of course, happy Women's Day to everyone. And just as a brief introduction, so I'm Praveg, currently living in London, working with Bain & Company here as an innovation consultant. As Paridhi mentioned, I am from the INSEAD batch of December 21. So it's been 3 years over here in London for me. Before INSEAD, before going for my MBA, I was in Hong Kong for almost 8 years. Did my undergrad over there, as well as worked with JP Morgan for almost 4 years across their tech and talent functions. Originally, I am from India, from the pink city of Jaipur. And been pretty much outside of India for the last 12, 13 years or so. Outside of work, just as Shantanu said, I also love playing music. Been a piano player for almost 25 plus years, as well as I love covering Hindi and Bollywood songs on my parallel Instagram account as well. So yeah, that's just a bit about me.
I think, Praveg, it's just about time. Why don't you drop your Insta handle over here? But thanks, both of you, for your introduction. Shantanu, do you want to talk about the two stories before we jump on to...
Yeah. So would love to talk about two stories. First one, an applicant who comes from a very humble background, who was one of the first person to go abroad for studies in her neighborhood. She was 10 when she moved out of her hometown for boarding school. And then the way we had, put EC in the narrative is that she started learning karate. And she goes like, when I was 10, when I went out of my hometown, I always thought that muscle power is everything. And that's when I started learning karate, and I realized it's not just the muscle power, it's muscle power plus your mind, right? And once I became black belt, it really boosted my confidence, and it gave me a really very different perspective into world. And then that's when we threw like a professional example, how confident she is and how calm under pressure she is, right? And then she says, because I come from a very remote area, our social interactions were not there, and that's exactly where, when it comes to people's management, I'm very bad at delegation. This is my weakness, right? And that's how she says that this particular school is going to help me, and blah 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 and blah. Also, supporting women. Over the time, I've seen that women like me need support, and that's why what I do is I've set up, with the help of, there were like a couple of companies where she raises funds. With the help of blah and blah, I raise like 23 lakhs a year, and I support women from my community, from my neighborhood, in terms of helping them understand what scholarships are available, what sort of undergrad schools they can go to. And she also throws like full scholarship for 1 year through the funds that she raises. This girl got 100% scholarship at LPS, because of this story. And like, you guys don't even know what her function is, what the industry is, right? But this story, this particular part got it through. Just to help you understand, now professionally she was into supply chain, and during COVID she had firsthand witnessed the impact of COVID on global supply chain, and she was handling imports. Yeah, just a brief snapshot, right? I'm also going to give you another story where, again, irrespective of what is the function, what is the score, and whatever it is, right, everyone is unique in their own way. So the second story goes like, I come from a family where females have taken the charge always, and since beginning, one thing that I've realized is, when I was right, I was given a year, and even when I was wrong, my folks would listen to me. And this particular thing had inculcated a habit in me of listening, of understanding that there's nothing right or wrong. It's just perspectives. Coming from this particular background, over the time, I realized that I'm a good mediator. And in my job, being a mediator, I can realize that I can resolve conflict. So my strength is resolving conflicts, right? Again, you don't even know what industry this person from, what role this person is doing, right? So all I'm trying to say is that this is what a story is. Whatever you're doing in your life is nothing but an extension of your story. So your differentiating factor does not come from what you're doing. Your differentiating factor comes from who you are, which is way beyond your professional life. So yeah, cheers again to all lovely ladies. Paridhi, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for starting off with on a good note, Shantanu. I think that was very informative, just for us to start thinking beyond our resumes when we think about our stories, because that's where we mostly get stuck. We're just stuck on the numbers, on the stats, on the GMAT scores and everything. When it comes to actually telling a story, we want to be in a rush to pull off a great story in just 15 days for so many applications. So before I jump on to the questions, we'll keep it very specific to INSEAD. I can see that some of you are applying for round 2. Please drop in more answers so we know if we have to tackle questions for round 1 or not, which is in 3 days, just to get started with. And then we're going to move over to round 2. You've got less than 50 days. INSEAD in general, I would like to understand from Shantanu and Praveg how heavy of a work it is, because from our consultants, we understand it. It takes 40 to 60 days to pull off a good INSEAD application. Why is that so? Why is INSEAD considered such a heavy application? And how early should a candidate plan an INSEAD application? So if you can just talk about the load of work, anyone of you can start. And I think then we can build up on the questions that we've received on the side. And feel free to ask your questions in the chat, everyone.
Something new. But I can.
Go ahead, man. I saw you unmuted, so that's why I thought I'm not going to talk. So
yeah, go for it, Praveg.
All right. Yeah, I think a couple of things, right? Of course, INSEAD is one of those heavy applications. Given the number of essays, given the depth of the essays that INSEAD as a school kind of expects from applicants, definitely one of the heavier applications. Which is why it's always advisable to start as soon as possible, as early as you can, working towards R1, R2, whichever rounds that you're working at. And a couple of reasons behind that, right? INSEAD is a school that really appreciates good storytelling and authenticity. So, and that obviously takes a lot of time to really bring out from a particular candidate, from a particular application, right? uh, One of the biggest mistakes that people usually do, they often go for very generic essays, and they don't really reflect their unique experiences from the essays. It doesn't really bring out who they are as a person outside of their professional life. As Shantanu mentioned a couple of stories in the beginning, right? A lot of candidates tend to kind of dwell on their professional achievements, massive numbers, etc. Sure, makes a lot of sense, but that's not really what INSEAD as a school is looking for. They're really looking for who you are as a person outside of your professional life. What are those unique instances, those turning points in your life that have really shaped you as a person, and shaped you as a professional going forward? That is what they really want to know from you, know from your essays. And crafting that obviously takes up a lot of time, which is essentially why it's always advisable that if INSEAD is one of your target schools, start early, start as soon as you can, just so that we as a team can work together on understanding your career goals. We can craft the narrative in terms of why an MBA is the best possible pathway for you right now to achieve your long-term career ambitions, as well as bring out that authentic self. Try to come up with a strong storyline and a narrative that can help you stand outside of all of the big massive pool of applications that INSEAD usually gets.
Right, right. I mean, if you see INSEAD has the highest word count of all the applications that you see. INSEAD, I think, has around 2,000 words. Yeah, I know LBS also has it, but on the surface, you would see LBS only asking one question. Well, LBS also asks a lot of questions, but in general, like INSEAD on the surface also puts up, all the questions over there, and they are like 2,000 words. The story that I told you, right, very succinctly, has to be placed in all the essays without any essay repeating any content, right? Which is the most difficult part. If I can't repeat any content, then it means I really need to show up different things. And if I have to show up different things, I can't keep things in silo. I need to have a connection, and that's what it takes time, because it's not about what you are writing. It's about why are you writing whatever you're writing, and that why, and like really getting deep into whatever aspects we are showing, whatever nuances that we're putting forth in the application. Why are we showing those? How are they connected? Who are you overall? And then your resume, right? And then also in your LORs, right? INSEAD has 6 questions in LOR. Again, like more than any other school, like INSEAD is asking a lot of questions. So your referees also need to know, like, how am I going to answer these, right? If you just do USB school, a USB school, I think, gives you 1,000 words, and they only ask you a couple of questions, like strengths and weaknesses, right? Whereas INSEAD is going to ask you strength, weakness, your career progression, your leadership, how do you perform in a team setting, right? Like all of these things makes it really very difficult. So yeah, it takes really a lot more time. It's not about doing 2 applications each 1,000 words. Still here, if I just have 1,000 words for 2 applications, I can really control the source of information. I can really control the information that I am putting forth. But if I have 2,000 words in just one single application, right, it takes more than the double time, right? And that's exactly where INSEAD is difficult than the other applications.
Thank you, both of you. Just for everyone to be realizing and be aware, because I know some of you have started working on your applications, on your narrative. Some of you haven't, and you're in a fix and not able to decide when should you. Ideally, if it's round 2, for at least all the names that I see over here who've put round 2, you should already be working on your applications. That's just the best advice I can give if you're targeting the April deadline. Shantanu, you touched upon the LOR bit, so we'll take on the question which we've received about recommendations. How can candidates craft essays and secure recommendations that align with INSEAD's expectations. Like we mentioned, it's not just the essays that are heavy, it's also the recommendations, the questions that are heavy. And I think this is going to be one of the first sessions where we're talking about recommendations as well. So maybe what advice do you have for people targeting round one, if they should move to round two, or also the ones how can they prepare better for round two already? So
Right.
both, Shantanu, anyone? Yeah.
Right. So, to see LOR, resume, and your essays need to complement one another, right? And needs to validate the story, right? Now, we have a narrative through the essays, and there are claims that we are making, right? And we are saying that this thing happened. Believe me, please, right? Now, to make them believe this particular stuff, we really got to choose how much of it should we really talk in the LOR, right? Like you can't have everything similar to what's there in the essays, right? So you really got to choose. I have talked about, like, for example, INSEAD has, now they have 5 questions, but it's equivalent to, like, earlier they had like 7 questions, right? But even, let's say we are talking about 5 questions, 2,000 word, and we're going to talk about a lot of anecdotes, right? Which anecdotes should we pick and revalidate so that the claim that we are making, business school believes it? I think that's what's supposed to be done. It's a pretty strategic decision that's need to be made. Again, you just cannot say, what about 10 things over here? Let's validate 10 things. Then it's pretty evident you wrote your own LOR, right? So what should you tell your referees that, hey, would be great if you can talk about this, that, and the other, and that's it. And now how do you choose this, that, and the other is the art, in short. Yeah. So period. Pravik, over to you.
Yeah, Chandra, I think you pretty much covered everything. I think from my perspective, if you look at the INSEAD application, right, the entire application offers you primarily 3 platforms to kind of demonstrate your fit for the program and to show them your story. Of course, one is the essays, the second is the LOR, and the third is the video interview. Of course, these are at the time when you're submitting the application. Later on, you will obviously have the in-person interviews as well. But across these 3 platforms, this is essentially your chance to kind of highlight your entire story, as well as build on primarily the 3 big pillars that INSEAD as a school really looks for, which are essentially, in my mind, leadership, international experience, and teamwork. So the LOR, I see that as a platform. For example, if there are certain anecdotes, as Shantanu said, right, certain anecdotes in your essays and in your video essays that you want the AdCom to further kind of have a higher degree of belief that yes, you were the person who actually did go through this experience at work or outside of work. You can use your recommenders words to kind of add more weight on top of your stories, which is where you kind of have to strike a balance that, okay, if you've covered one pillar effectively in one of the platforms, you can then use the second platform to cover out the other pillar and further reinstate in the mind of the reader or the AdCom that yes, you are a person or a candidate who has covered all 3 pillars and is the perfect fit for INSEAD. So I think that's the only bit that I would want to add.
Thank you, both of you. I'm just taking up one of our candidates' question, and then Aditya, I'll move to yours. Ayushi is one of our candidates, and she's asking, there's an optional essay in INSEAD, if there's any additional or anything else you want to share with us. So she wants to understand what content should come in this essay, as there is no specific question here.
Ayushi, I would say, since you're applicant, don't worry, right? We are going to have a good call during, so don't worry. But as of, I refrain from writing optional essay, personally, and deal is, unless until there are gaps which we feel, unless until we feel that there are questions that AdCom might feel as per our experience over the time, we answer them through the optional essay, else we just don't. There's no point in bringing up a thing which the other person is not even thinking, and you unnecessarily put forth in front of them, hey, have you thought about this? No? Okay, then here it is, right? So it depends as per the oral narrative. Ayushi would be. I would love to be there on a call with you. Don't worry.
Thanks, Shantanu. Aditya's checking. He wants to apply. He wants to submit his application for round 1. The essays are ready. Everything is ready, but the GMAT score officially is not in yet. So should he submit with the unofficial score? That's the question.
I have already answered that.
Okay. All
Submit
right.
the official score. No one cares. Yeah.
Sorry.
Whenever you get the official score, submit it. Okay.
Yeah.
For now,
But I mean, can you help everybody else have the answer?
For now it's fine. For now, when you're applying, it's fine. Submit the unofficial scorecard. Take a snapshot. There's an other documents section. Upload over there. And once your official score is in, submit it. That's it. It's fine. Not just for INSEAD, for every school.
Thanks. Can we please talk a bit about intakes? The classic question, Jan versus August intake is the question. So yeah, I mean, we'll touch upon that again because I know a lot of people will have that question. So Jan versus August intake and round 1 versus round 2. If there's any difference, pros and cons. Pravik, maybe you can take that one.
I think taking the first one, right, the difference between the intakes. So I think if I can say academically and in terms of the opportunities that you as a candidate will get, there's absolutely no difference between both the intakes. You will get access to the same amount of opportunities, the same courses, etc. It's just that the January intake will also give you an opportunity to have 2 months worth of a summer break in the middle between 2 periods. So that obviously gives you an opportunity to go for a summer internship. I think from an opportunities perspective, the biggest difference I would say is if you're targeting investment banking as a potential career after the MBA. And that if that is the case, then obviously the Jan intake would be the preferred one because all investment banks pretty much need you to be a summer intern in order for you to get a full-time offer. So that out of all the different career options is the only one that can, I would say, guide your thinking around or decision in terms of do you want to go for the Jan intake versus the September intake. But apart from that, there's absolutely no difference. As a candidate, if I were to kind of, want to kind of experiment a few industries out there, maybe be a part of a few startups in Europe or in the Asian market and really experiment out there, how does life look like maybe in the consulting domain before taking the big step into one of these industries as a full-time person, that is where I can use the 2 months of summer internship to really, gauge in terms of, is this the right direction for me? That is again one aspect where the Jan intake really adds a lot of value. I mean, I was part of Jan intake, and a lot of my batchmates literally just took the 2 months to take a break, travel around Europe, and have fun. So if that is something that's on your agenda, of course, also again Jan intake might make a little more sense. But broadly speaking, academically and opportunity wise, there's absolutely no difference between the two intakes as such.
Thanks, Vivek.
There's actually no difference apart from the internship that you get in between. I didn't take an internship. I was working on a business idea and traveling. So, but in terms of job opportunities, everything is same.
Thanks. Round 1 versus round 2, because a lot of candidates here, I know INSEAD claims like there is no difference in the acceptance rates, but at least from MBA and Beyond's point of view, with the applicants, candidates that we've worked with, what do you both feel?
Right. So I can go first. I think in terms of the different rounds, obviously, as Parthi mentioned, INSEAD does not claim that there's any difference across all the rounds. But realistically speaking, obviously, as we go from round 1 to round 2, we can obviously understand that there will be a reduction in the number of seats that is available. So realistically, yes, there is an increase in the degree of competitiveness that you would face as an applicant, which is why it's always kind of preferred that apply as early as you can, as soon as you can. And now that INSEAD also has rolling applications, again, I only can reinstate the fact that getting into the process as early as you can would be extremely beneficial. I think the only other difference between round 1 and round 2 that I wanted to highlight is your access to scholarships, because obviously the number of seats and the access to the number of scholarships is limited. And as people go through getting offers as part of round one, they try to obviously take or give out as many scholarships as they can. So by the time you reach round two, round three, round four, the access to scholarships reduces quite exponentially. So that is, I think, another difference that I would mention. Round one, round two, you're pretty safe in terms of gunning for the best scholarships out there. By round three and round four, the competitiveness goes up exponentially high, and access to scholarships really goes down. So preferably, if I am speaking to a candidate, I would prefer them to apply either round one, or if not round one, then round two.
Right. Thank you, Pravik. To add to it, um, I would say so. It depends on the pool, and I'm going to break it off. Since it's women's, I'm going to break it off into females and males. Females, feminism has started to pay off finally, in a good way. From the last, again, couple of years, 3 years, we have seen so like schools in general are trying to maintain a good gender balanced, gender ratio, and this is exactly where, even if it's R1, R2, R3, we have gotten scholarships in R3. Female candidates, I'm not talking about male candidates. Males, guys, because INSEAD is rolling, so there isn't much difference between R1 and R2. But if you're applying at end, the last 7 days of any deadline, then I would say instead of applying R1 in last 7 days, apply in R2 like 20-30 days prior. That's when you're going to have higher chances. That's when anyone would have higher chances, first of all. So yeah, that's the advice. As of now, I would say applying an R2 20 days in advance is going to give you better chances than applying in R1 in last 7 days.
Thanks, both of you. I hope we are all aware that INSEAD has opened rolling admissions, at least the one joining the session. Now you're aware. So please take full advantage of that, because not many candidates, I understand, who I speak to freshly or, for the first time, they are not aware. So the sooner you submit in the round, the better are your chances. Same goes for, another school most likely people are working on alongside INSEAD is HEC Paris. And they've always had rolling admissions. So the deadlines, but yeah, even if you're ready with your application 15-20 days prior to the deadline, what Shantanu and Praveg are recommending is that you click the submit button if you feel confident and ready about your application. Let me just take up one more question from the audience. What do you want to talk about the ideal GMAT focus edition score for INSEAD for Indians? And this is coming from an Indian male, because I know this is a new edition and we have a fairly less number of stats on the internet. So Shantanu, Praveg, maybe like experience from our applicants, if we can share.
665 with international exposure, with slight international exposure. If you have huge international exposure, then I would say can go to 635 for males. In GRE we've gotten success at 317 GRE.
For an Indian male,
Indian male, yeah.
That's interesting.
Talking about Indian male, yeah.
Okay. So
Indian female at 630 GMAT, she got through INSEAD R3, with 18,000 euro scholarship.
All right. I hope you got your answer, Archit, over there. I'm picking up one more question. What are the post-MBA job prospects for international students in terms of sponsorships? I don't understand the question, sponsorships, but yeah, maybe we can talk about job opportunities, and maybe as we are talking about it, we can also talk about market accessibility after INSEAD, because currently, there's no question around it, but I know People have questions around why by the time we graduate, is the market situation going to get better? When do we foresee that the market situation is going to get better? Is UK, Europe, is the prime geography they should be looking at, or Asia, Middle East? And let's talk about all of that maybe a little bit. Pravik, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah,
And
I
then,
would say Pravik is the right person because
yes.
he graduated like 3 years ago, right? So Pravik, over to you.
Yeah, no. So I think great question. One question that I'm pretty much asked by everyone who's currently doing their MBA at INSEAD, about to graduate, and postgraduates as well. I mean, see, when would the job market or economy become better? That's a macroeconomic level question. Obviously, I wouldn't really have an answer to that. Everyone, just like me, would only hope that by the time you start your MBA, by the time you are finding a job, the market will get better. Gradually, yes, it is getting better post COVID. We do see a lot of opportunities come up. A lot of new companies are now coming up with sponsorship, availabilities for MBA grads. So it's definitely a positive trend that we are seeing, and hopefully by the end of this year, by the beginning of next year, we should be entering a brand new job market, which is ripe for disruption through new MBA candidates. So, well, hoping for that. But I think answering the first part of the question, how does, in terms of geography or in terms of sponsorship, what are the access to opportunities? What does that look like? So, I think as part of if you're an INSEAD grad, you would primarily have access to the entire UK and Europe market. You would have access to the Middle Eastern and Asian or Indian South Asian market, as well as the Southeast Asian market, including Singapore, Hong Kong, and a bit of Australia. Realistically, the US is a market where us as INSEADers have less of an access to, unless, of course, you're an American citizen. Then it's a different story altogether. But because there are already global schools present over there, and the employers prefer that, so US isn't a market that is a big target area for us as such. Now, when it comes to sponsorships, after INSEAD, if you're looking at UK or Europe, yes, you will require sponsorship. None of the countries in this region offer a post-study work visa as such. So yes, you will require sponsorship. Now, what I've seen is, as an INSEAD grad, the biggest bottleneck is actually cracking through the interviews and getting the offer. Once you have the offer with a company who is actively coming on campus and taking interviews, then usually getting sponsorship is not really a blocker for them. The fact that they are coming on your campus and actively looking for candidates automatically tells us that yes, they are willing to sponsor visas. So typically after the INSEAD MBA, sponsorship is not an issue. The biggest bottleneck is actually getting or finding the right opportunity, the right role. London has been one of the biggest target markets for INSEAD grads, even though I can see that the Middle East cities like Riyadh, Dubai, and Doha, they are exponentially rising as target markets for MBA grads, primarily because, of course, zero tax, less of a sponsorship requirement from a visa perspective, and higher salaries as well. So Middle East, I see a lot of my batchmates who either went to the Middle East directly after their MBA or moved countries after spending a few years here in Europe or in Asia. And similarly, again, if we look at the Asian market, be it Australia, be it Singapore, Hong Kong, yes, visa sponsorship is something that will be required. But again, as I said, it's usually not the biggest bottleneck or the biggest blocker for INSEAD grads. It's really finding the relevant role, the right employer, and the right opportunity, and cracking through the interviews. That is the biggest bottleneck. Sponsorship is not something that I would worry about a lot as such.
Absolutely. Like sponsorship is something that you actually shouldn't worry about. This is not an issue. We're not talking about H1B lotteries. No, there's no lottery. You'll get the visa, and you'll get a highly skilled visa. And on that visa, for example, let's say if you get into Germany, you get citizenship in 21 months, provided you learn German. Right? You get EU citizenship in 21 months. If you don't learn German, 36 months, right? So the sort of visa that you get, it's really amazing, yeah, that's it. I can talk about individual countries, but I think I shouldn't. So I just thought to let you guys know, the highly skilled visa is one of the best things you can ever get in your life.
And same numbers, 5 years for the UK, just for context. So yeah.
Thanks. Same for the Netherlands. For anybody looking at Amsterdam, booking.com and Unilevers of the world. Okay. I have a question, actually two questions around reapplication. So somebody's asking, if I got rejected in round 3, should I be applying to round 1? And there's another candidate asking, how long should one wait before reapplying after rejection? Both of them are female candidates. Have you noticed any candidate in your experience who got in being a reapplicant? So maybe we can talk a little bit about reapplication, if you've seen any success story of candidates getting in and how and why. So yeah, Shantanu, Praveg, your thoughts will
The
be valid.
biggest problem with reapplicants is they just got rejected, right? Let's say an R3 or an R2. Now they want to apply an R1 of next intake, right? And INSEAD has 2 intakes in a year, like January and September. So you got rejected on let's say June of a year. Now you want to apply again in November, right? So they are hardly like 5 months. So how much of a difference can we show? Right? Literally nothing. Whereas if there's an applicant who can wait for 1.5, 2 years, right? If you can really wait, and this is the biggest problem. If you can wait, then yeah, they are successes. But if you think in 3 months, because see, I mean, now when we are applying, we really got to showcase how have you changed. You were rejected last time, right? So we really got to showcase how has your career path changed? How where can you showcase in terms of leadership? You've gained much more experience, right? What awards have you won? Have you gotten any promotion? Have you gotten any recognition? Have you increased your score? Right? Winning awards, getting a promotion, increasing score, and having more people working under you just cannot happen in 4 months. I hope you guys get my point, right? Which is the biggest problem. If people wait enough, then yeah, I mean, there are people who have gotten through, but how many, right? Because if they just got rejected, now they're gonna apply at INSEAD again. First of all, get rejected again, but gonna apply at other schools, get through, and then finally do their MBA.
Yeah, thanks, Shantanu. So I know we've all heard that INSEAD is not reapplication friendly. There is a reason for that, because the volume of reapplications is exactly the same mistake that Shantanu just quoted, that if you've gotten rejected in Jan intake, you don't give enough time to yourself, and then you try and attempt an August intake, maybe a round 1, if you did a round 2 in the previous, you don't have enough delta to talk about. We have a reapplicant this year, we are working, but they gave themselves 2 year of a gap, and the profile
2 years. Yeah,
2.5 years, and the profile has significantly improved, and we feel fairly confident that she's going to pull it off. But we've seen another candidate actually reattempting the 3rd time and getting into INSEAD as well. But again, both these candidates were female candidates, and they gave themselves enough window and bandwidth to showcase that what has significantly changed in their profile since the last time. So if you feel you've significantly worked on your profile since the last time that you got rejected, whether it's 2 years or 1 or whatever, go ahead, take a shot. Anything, Praveg, you want to add on reapplications, or did you have any reapplicants around you when you went to INSEAD?
Very similar points, right? I think primarily because INSEAD has 2 intakes, it does not really make a lot of sense to apply for the very next intake, because obviously it does take everyone some time to kind of add a lot of value to their current existing profile, which was already rejected, be it a promotion, be it international experience, etc. And being able to add all of these things, because it takes time, I think 1 year minimum, I would say, is the time that you should take to even consider a reapplication towards INSEAD.
Yeah, and not speaking from the perspective of an MBA admissions consultant, but speaking from the perspective of being an INSEAD alum, the problem is not with INSEAD, guys. The problem is you guys need to take time, right? I understand INSEAD is not reapplicant friendly, because what they see is that people applying in 3 months, reapplying in 3 months, right? And that's simply in a very polite way, guys, that's ridiculous. So yeah.
All right, thanks both of you. Hardik's checking again, same question we ask: how much of a deal breaker is international exposure for INSEAD? So yeah, we can thought deal breaker, yes, but how much? I think that's the question. So Pravek, do you want to take that, or Shantanu, you?
I will go first.
Go ahead, Pravek.
No, so I think, see, when it comes to international experience, it really depends on how do you define international experience. What exactly is international experience in your mind? And to be fair, why INSEAD asks you for international experience is because the AdCom wants to check that are you a person who would thrive in, say, a group of people coming from 5 different countries? Are you a person who understands cultural sensitivities? Are you a person who understands different ways of working? Or are you a person who has a very diverse mindset? And if you're able to demonstrate these capabilities, these abilities through anecdotes, then that is exactly what they need. Now, this can come from having spent some time, say, outside of your home country, living and working in an international location, sure. But if you've not had the opportunity to do that, you can also demonstrate the same skill sets by saying that, okay, even though I haven't gone out of my home country, I have traveled for leisure. So I do understand, how these countries look like, what are the people over there, what are those cultural sensitivities that I need to be aware of. You can say that I have worked on projects where my managers were outside of my home country, where I worked with a lot of colleagues very closely. And that was what kind of gave me that exposure of understanding cultural sensitivities, cultural differences. And that has helped me inculcate a very diverse mindset. And I am comfortable enough to, thrive in an environment where there are people coming from 70 different nationalities. And that's exactly what you will see once you enter the INSEAD MBA program. So that is exactly what the AdCom checks for and wants to understand and know from you, that do you have that sort of a mindset and experience and exposure? And if you're able to demonstrate that, that is how we define international exposure. So it's not necessarily flying out of your country, living and working outside somewhere. It is really more about the experience that you can demonstrate.
Right. Pardi, I'm going to take 5 minutes. Guys, let's play a game. Okay. I'm going to tell a story, and would be great. And I want you guys to answer it simultaneously. I'm going to give you good 10 seconds. It's not a rocket science. A very simple answer. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a king. Please listen to the story again. And if you're not able to get it, please tell me to stop and repeat it. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a king. King had a queen. Queen fell in love with a peasant. Bishop got to know about it and told about it to king. King asked knight to kill the peasant. That's it. The story ended. Now someone died over here. Who do you think is at fault? Take 20 seconds. Please type your answer in here. Do not press enter until I say, because I don't want you guys to be influenced with each other answers, because that's exactly what international exposure is. Okay.
Can you send it to me in my private chats or Shantanu's? You can send it to Pravek.
Send it to everyone, guys. I'm like, everyone needs to see this, and it's fine. And guys, there's no right answer. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. And that's what international exposure is. Okay. Please type in.
I got a few DMs, but that's good. I mean, up to you whether you want to share your answer.
No, seriously, share it. Come on. Share it.
But Shantanu, I think we influence each other, so let's just try it.
No, if you're not sharing it, this is exactly. I'll explain it in the end. What does INSEAD mean by international exposure? Go ahead, guys.
Okay, there are answers coming.
Wonderful. Thank you, whoever participated.
I did get an answer that's no one also. Somebody said no one. Yeah. And apart from that, I can see king the most, of course.
Right. I don't remember my answer back then. So this was an activity in our organization behavior class, where in a group we were asked this question. And the deal is, there's no right or wrong answer. But the thing is, If someone is saying king, then the answer that I've heard until now is the king ordered it. King said to kill that person, so he's responsible, he's at fault, right? And someone would say, no, queen should have taken care of it, right? And someone would say bishop, he had no reason to tell on someone, right? He could have kept on himself, right? Or herself. Someone said peasant, like, was he idiot? So yeah, I mean, all the answers are right, but all I'm trying to say is that this is exactly where the cultural difference comes into picture, because you can't argue over here. Even if you're going to argue, there's no, you can't prove it, right? And it's just the way all of us are conditioned, during our childhood, whatever assumptions you have in your life. And I'm telling you, this was given to us in our study group, and we fought a lot, because eventually the thing was that we have to find consensus among 5 of us to give the answer, and we couldn't, right? Because everyone was different. Now there are people who have answers but are not going to speak up. Now, what does INSEAD mean by international exposure? Is 2 things. When you have difference in opinion, understand the other opinion. And there are at times, if you have not faced cultural differences, then what happens is you have this tendency to keep quiet and not speak up. And honestly, in that study group, if you're not speaking up, you're not learning. And also your study group is falling short of one person, which is you, right? They're also not learning. And that's why INSEAD values international exposure a lot. I hope, guys, I've made my point. And by international exposure, they really mean physically moving out now, because competition is relative, not absolute. At the moment, we have so many applicants who have gotten like good amount of international exposure. Unless until you're a very different profile. We are actually working with a few applicants who do not have experience physically moving out, but they're very different, very, very different than others. So yeah, Preeti, over to you. I took 6 minutes, my bad.
No, but thanks for that. I hope that opens up all our minds to think what INSEAD means by international exposure. In addition to this, and thanks for bringing the class to this session, Shantanu, like a little memory of yours. It was really fun, and I know you made me play that game also once years ago, and a lot of us have discussed about it. So yeah, no right or wrong answer. It's just a perception and how we are culturally, how we are, and just a little book to to all of you to understand. It's a recommendation. It's Culture Map by Erin Mayer. Erin Mayer is one of the professors at INSEAD, and the book is amazing. It just talks about different perspectives of the world depending on the country that we were raised in, or which part of our life journey were we in a certain country, how it can shape us differently versus, let's say, if I lived in US and India and Middle East, how I would behave in a certain situation versus, if I only grew up in India. So just read up Culture Map as you're doing INSEAD application as well. You might just get a lot more perspective to talk with respect to what value is INSEAD really looking for, from considering that it's coming from a professor who really teaches international exposure at INSEAD. It's called Culture Map. I'll just type that out for you and the professor's name. But let's take up a question that we have. If applicants decide to delay their submission to R1, what key areas should they focus on improving? If, let's say, somebody's not ready for R1 yet, they thought they would be, but they decide to focus on R2 instead. So are there any key factors that both of you would recommend they should have a checklist of, just to make sure whether they should submit by 11th of March or should they wait until 21st of April? Basically, that's the question. Shantanu, Praveg, anyone?
It's rolling admissions. So, if you're ready, then I would say don't submit now. Submit it after 11th March. Well, on 12th. Your application will get reviewed in R2 with like handful of applications who applied in R2. Like who applies like 35 days before the deadline, right? And this is exactly what rolling means. There's no checklist. Uh, it's the same thing, but it's about taking advantage of rolling admissions. And that's it.
Sorry to cut in, but could you talk more about this? Like, say I'm applying on at 12 on the 11th of March and maybe the 15th of April. Yeah, what's the difference, would you say?
That's a very valid
Uh,
question, Shruti. Thanks for
yeah.
cutting it.
So Shruti, I really can't talk about the exact dates, right? It's gonna be difficult for me to comment there. 15th March was the last day. But all I'm gonna say is that if you apply, let's say 2 weeks earlier than the deadline or 3 weeks prior to the deadline, versus you're applying in the last week of the deadline, then applying 2 to 3 weeks prior to the deadline is gonna help your case. It's gonna significantly improve your chances.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have more
I
follow-up
wish I
questions.
knew when the adcom is sitting at what time.
Yeah, so what does I think this is also a common confusion. Then what are the deadlines for if it's rolling admissions? I think a lot of candidates are like, why do we have rounds if it's rolling? Like, I think everybody asks, why is not there just one deadline?
No, but what happens is you gotta fill seats up. You gotta fill in particular number of seats at particular point in time, and that's what the deadline is. But if you are more ready than the others, then it's a privilege which school is giving you. That's how you should take it.
Yep, got it. Thank you. What strategic steps can applicants take to strengthen? Because most of them are going for R2. Are there any specifics that you both want to talk about that we can keep in mind because we still have time for R2?
Yeah, I think I can take that one. I can go first. So I think a couple of steps, right? I think the biggest step is just looking at your narrative so far. And a usual kind of rule of thumb that I always think of when I'm crafting these narratives is, for any aspect of your personal and professional life, it should always be less about the what, more about the why. I think this is something that Chandra also touched on earlier today. What usually applicants do, right? That, okay, this is a project, this has been my biggest achievement, these are the massive numbers that I've achieved. Great, perfect. It is probably already in your CV. But what the AdCom really wants to know from you is, why do you think this was your biggest achievement? And that is what takes the biggest, the longest time for the applicant to think of what is the answer to this why, and how can they, put this as part of their overall career trajectory. How can they show that, yes, this was a turning point for them in their professional trajectory or their personal life as well. And that is what takes the longest amount of time for us to kind of craft this narrative, understand what the entire career trajectory look like, and how does the MBA kind of fit into this picture. So just having a very clear view of what this entire end-to-end trajectory looks like for you, where you're coming from, what are the skills that you have, where are the skill gaps, how does the MBA fit into the picture, what exactly would you want to do right after the MBA, and how does that act as a stepping stone to eventually make you reach your long-term career ambition or your career objective. That entire end-to-end trajectory is what takes the biggest amount of time for us to kind of figure out. So I think really thinking about that, thinking more about the why at every point of time across this entire trajectory, that is, I think, what you should be thinking of as you start thinking about your application and your essays for R2.
Thanks, Vivek. Shantanu, do you want to add anything before I just last
Guys, I'm
question?
extremely sorry. I lost the question because I was counting how many people replied. There was 17, so I know the number. But can you repeat the question again? Yeah.
That's all right. I think Praveg addressed the question pretty well. So, I mean, there's one of our candidates again asking, because I think everybody's really anxious about the job opportunities after INSEAD. So it's just a follow up on that so we can address that. Got to notice that recent trends from employment reports and some research that most of the school grads from INSEAD move to either UAE or Singapore or come back to their own country. Has pivoting to Europe become difficult these days? Can you throw some light on this? If our goal is to also get to work in Europe post MBA, what do you advise to be prepared with realistically?
Right.
Vivek,
Yeah, sure. I can probably take this. So Yes, there have been trends for sure. A lot of job opportunities, a lot of new industries are now building up in the Middle East, and they need people. They need highly competent people, and of course, targeting the top MBA schools is the obvious steps for employers based in the UAE or in KSA as well, right? And that is a trend that we are seeing. A lot of people are moving to the Middle East for consulting opportunities, for investment banking, for a lot of even the big techs, right? So that those trends are there, but I think there are a few trends that are a little overarching than these as well. So as you know, right, INSEAD is a feeder school for a lot of consulting companies, McKinsey, Bain, BCG, a lot of these top nine consulting firms. So for the longest period of time, these consulting firms were focused on strategy consulting, management consulting, pure strategy work. Now that is one of the trends that is massively shifting, and the ask right now is that you should be a person who can think about strategy, who can understand problems, solve problems, but you should also be a person who can also think about implementation or actually building a product end to end. Now that typically or historically has only been a skill set that has been required by the big techs, product management companies, but now even consulting companies want you to be a product builder, because more often than not, even McKinsey, Bain, and BCG are doing strategy work on top of implementation work. So that is a bigger, a larger overarching trend that I would say, primarily, in Europe and the UK, we can see that trend, which has led to, more kind of strict requirements in terms of what exactly are the skill sets you need if you want to enter the consulting industry here in the UK or in Europe. So maybe those are a few overarching trends that are still kind of in that transition period. So even these companies are figuring out what exactly is the skill sets they're looking for from these top MBA colleges. But yes, in terms of location, there are trends in terms of a move towards the Middle East. There is high demand over there, and even from a monetary perspective, it does make a lot of sense for a lot of people to move there, and using that money obviously pay off your INSEAD MBA loan if there was any. So yes, there are these trends, but it only calls for more skills to be developed as a consultant, for example, while you're doing your MBA, if that makes sense.
Right.
Thanks.
So a month ago, guys, I was going to Goa's INSEAD alum meet, and I saw a name over there, and I had a phone number saved. So I thought it's one of our applicants, and a lot of applicants have similar names. So I thought it's a recent applicant, just gotten through with the same name she got through. But I realized, no, she's not the one who had just gotten through, but she's the one who has graduated. And I bumped into her. And then this year was difficult, guys, first of all, for anyone to take jobs. Be it INSEAD, be it LBS, be it Harvard, be it Stanford, whatever it is, right? It was difficult. But what I could see, overall, the way it works is that eventually you got to leverage the network. If you want a job in Middle East, then network with people in Middle East. If you want a job in a particular location, Europe, network with people over there, right? Now, in terms of, do we have more jobs over here? Do we have more jobs over here? No, no one can answer you that question, right? But I think it's more about eventually getting yourself placed and deciding location where you really want to be. It's a funnel, and by funnel I mean you reach out to 100 people on top of the funnel of INSEAD alum at a particular location. Probably 60 are gonna get back to you. By the way, INSEAD start is 70%. 70 are gonna get back to you. Out of this 70, probably 50 are gonna refer you. Out of which, probably 30 places or 25 places is where you're gonna get the first interview, and then now it's on your talent, right? Then probably you're gonna get to round 2 of blah blah blah, and then eventually you get jobs out of it. So it's a funnel, right? And you should know how to leverage network. And INSEAD's network is humongous. Even if you have, that's what I told 224Ds as well. They just graduated. That even if you not have gotten a job until now, it's just because of the market conditions, first of all. But we're up. It's a funnel, and you will. I mean, there's no way you cannot.
All right. Thank you, both of you. I think that was a wonderful session. I hope everyone enjoyed it as well. I know we've not answered a couple of questions here and there. Feel free to send a reply to my email with your questions. I'll be happy to write a good answer to you or get on a call with you. All the best with your applications if you're targeting round 1, which is in just 3 days. And if you're looking at working with us for round 2, happy to have you on board. All the best, everyone. Thanks, Pravik. Thanks, Shantanu.
Cheers, everyone. Bye bye, and happy Women's Day again.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.